As the Zarixian warships darkened Earth's skies, a palpable tension enveloped the world. Panic gripped nations as cities prepared for an invasion that seemed inevitable. The Zarixian Empire, renowned for its brutal conquests across galaxies, was unlike any foe humanity had faced before. Towering vessels shimmered ominously against the backdrop of a setting sun, their metallic surfaces reflecting an unsettling beauty that belied the destruction they promised. In the heart of New York City, amidst the chaos, a small group of individuals gathered in a hidden underground facility known only to a select few scientists, engineers, and military strategists, met in a dimly lit room filled with holographic displays and maps of the approaching fleet. Each face bore a mixture of fear and determination as they shared their knowledge and expertise in a race against time. Commander Sarah Hale, a seasoned military leader, stood at the forefront, her voice cut through the silence as she outlined the gravity of their situation. The Zarixian forces are ruthless. She began. Their empire thrives on fear and domination. But they underestimate us. They think we are weak, that our fragmented world cannot unite against them. But we will show them otherwise. Among the group was Ravi Patel, a brilliant scientist whose groundbreaking research on energy weapons had been overlooked in peacetime. He stood up, excitement igniting his features. We have technology that can shift the balance. If we can harness the energy stored in the Earth's core, we might create a weapon powerful enough to disrupt their ship's energy systems. It could give us the edge we need. Nods of agreement rippled through the room as hope began to flicker like a flame. Each member knew the risks, but they also understood the stakes at that moment. They became a team bound by a shared mission to defend their home and fight for humanity. Meanwhile, above the clouds, the Zarixian commanders watched Earth with disdain. Their sleek ships communicated in harsh guttural tones as they reviewed their battle plans. The leader, General Krath, a formidable figure with a reputation for merciless tactics, sneered at the images of the planet below humans. He growled, "There will be no challenge. We will crush their spirits and claim their resources for our empire." As the Zarixian fleet descended, the first strike struck the outskirts of major cities, leaving destruction in its wake. Flames erupted into the sky as buildings crumbled under the onslaught. Humanity had never faced such overwhelming force, and for a moment despair threatened to take hold. Yet, in the heart of every city, resistance began to spark. In the underground facility, the team worked tirelessly. Each day was a blend of urgency and innovation. As they developed countermeasures and defenses, a sense of camaraderie grew among them, forging bonds that would become vital in the coming battles. They were not just fighting for survival, but for the very essence of humanity. With each passing day, the Zarixian ships drew closer, their shadows casting a pall over the planet. Yet unbeknownst to the invaders, humanity was preparing for a fight. A wave of determination washed over the people as they saw their cities rallying together to resist the tyranny that threatened to engulf them. The first ambush was set on the eve of the invasion. The streets of Los Angeles were eerily silent as civilians hid in homes and shelters. But a hidden network of fighters lay in wait. They had trained in secret, ready to strike with precision and ferocity. As the Zarixian forces landed, they would soon discover that humanity was not the weak prey they had anticipated, but a force united in defiance. In the heart of despair, a flicker of hope ignited the human spirit, showing that even in the darkest moments, the will to fight back could turn the tide of fate and spark a revolution that would resonate through the stars. In the days leading up to the invasion, as the Zarixian fleet loomed above the atmosphere, the underground facility buzzed with an energy fueled by urgency and resolve. Commander Sarah Hale rallied her team, each member now more than just colleagues, but a family united by a singular goal. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as plans were solidified and strategies honed to a fine edge. Ravi Patel worked feverishly on his energy weapon prototype, collaborating with engineers who transformed his visions into reality. The hum of machinery filled the air as they tested and adjusted each component. Knowing that every second counted, the weapon promised to be humanity's secret weapon, capable of disrupting Zarikian technology, but it needed to be perfect and ready before the first wave of invaders struck. As preparations continued, news trickled in from the surface. Scenes of destruction flashed across screens, showcasing the devastation wrought by the Zarikian forces. In cities across the globe, terrified citizens watched as their world crumbled around them. Yet amidst the chaos, a different story emerged. Reports of localized resistance spread like wildfire. Groups of brave individuals fought back, launching guerrilla attacks against the invaders, striking fear into the hearts of their oppressors. In Chicago, a team of civilians, armed with makeshift weapons, successfully ambushed a Zarikian patrol. Their swift strike sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks, igniting hope among other groups who were still unsure of their own capabilities. Word spread that humanity was willing to fight back, and for the first time the Zarikian forces faced a challenge they had not anticipated. Inspired by these acts of defiance, Sarah called for a meeting to solidify their plans. She gathered her team in the central command room, a vast space filled with holographic displays mapping the movements of Zarikian forces across the globe. The faces of her team glowed in the dim light, reflecting a shared sense of determination. "We have seen what we are up against," she began. "We know they are powerful, but they are also arrogant. They believe we are weak and divided, and that will be their downfall. We must exploit that arrogance and strike before they can fully mobilize. We need to take the fight to them." As murmurs of agreement filled the room, Sarah outlined their strategy. They would initiate a series of coordinated strikes on Zarikian supply lines, using the element of surprise to their advantage. Each team would have specific targets to disrupt their logistics and draw attention away from the main assault. In the weeks of preparation, small groups of fighters emerged across various cities, determined to prove that humanity would not go down without a fight. They communicated through encrypted messages, sharing intel and resources, forging connections that transcended borders and ideologies. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. With the plan in motion, the teams readied themselves for the first strike. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation as they gathered their weapons and supplies. Each member knew the risks, yet they also understood that they were part of something greater than themselves. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their very existence. As night fell on the eve of the invasion, Sarah stood on the command deck, gazing at the stars above. She felt a surge of hope, mixed with fear, yet in that moment she knew they would not face the darkness alone. Humanity would rise together, igniting a flame that could not be extinguished. At dawn, the first strike would commence. The streets would become battlegrounds as brave souls took a stand against a seemingly invincible foe. This was not just a fight for survival, but a fight for the future of their world, a declaration that humanity would never surrender in the face of tyranny, and that the spirit of resistance would shine bright even against the darkest of foes. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight illuminated a city on the brink of war. Los Angeles lay quiet beneath the surface, a tension coiling tighter with each passing moment. The underground facility buzzed with anticipation as the teams prepared for the strike. Commander Sarah Hale stood before her assembled fighters, each face reflecting a mix of determination and trepidation. Today was the day they would show the Zarikian Empire that humanity would not bow easily. Ravi and his engineering team made last-minute adjustments to the energy weapon. Their prototype pulsed with a bright blue light, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. They loaded the device onto a transport vehicle, ensuring it was secure and ready for action. Each member felt the weight of responsibility pressing upon them, knowing that the success of this mission could change the course of the war. As the clock ticked closer to the planned attack time, Sarah gathered her fighters in a circle. She looked each person in the eye and spoke with a fierce intensity. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who cannot stand up against the Zarixian menace. We fight for our future and the future of our children. Today, we show them the strength of humanity. With a collective roar of agreement, the teams took their positions across the city. Each unit was strategically placed to execute their specific targets. Coordinated movements would ensure maximum impact, while minimizing casualties. Among them were skilled fighters, former soldiers and civilians who had never held a weapon, but were driven by a fierce resolve. The first wave of Zarixian forces had established a temporary base in a downtown area. A sleek warship hovered above, while patrols scoured the streets in search of resistance. The invaders were confident, believing that humanity would cower before their might, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. As the teams activated their communication devices, the atmosphere shifted. The order was given, and the first strike began. A barrage of energy blasts erupted from concealed positions, catching the Zarixian patrols off guard. The sound of explosions filled the air as chaos erupted in the streets. Ravi monitored the battle from the transport vehicle, his heart racing as he watched the displays, showing the location of every skirmish. The energy weapon was still charging, but he could see the momentum shifting. The humans were holding their ground against the invaders. On the front lines, Sarah led her team with fierce determination. She moved with purpose, directing her fighters and providing cover fire as they advanced towards the Zarixian base. Her heart pounded in her chest, each explosion a reminder of the stakes at play. She refused to let fear paralyze her. Instead, it fueled her drive to push forward. In the chaos, the Zarixian forces struggled to regain control. Their arrogance had blinded them to the human spirit that now surged through the streets. Each human fighter pushed back with unyielding tenacity, proving that they were far from helpless. As Ravi shouted updates to Sarah, he could see the energy weapon was finally ready. The moment had come to unleash their most powerful tool. He gave the signal, and a surge of energy erupted from the weapon, striking the Zarixian warship. Hovering above, the impact sent shockwaves through the air, and for a moment time stood still. The Zarixian ship faltered, its systems overloaded, and lights flickered as panic spread among the enemy ranks. This was the turning point. The humans had found their strength, and their unity was a force to be reckoned with. The cries of defiance echoed through the streets as they pressed forward. With the Zarixian forces in disarray, Sarah rallied her team. The fight was far from over, but they had made their mark, and in that moment, the tide had begun to turn. The spirit of humanity roared to life, igniting a flame of hope that would spread beyond the borders of Earth into the hearts of all who dared to resist. The dawn of resistance had arrived, and the Zarixian Empire was about to face a challenge they never saw coming, a challenge born not just of desperation, but of a fierce determination to fight for the future, a future where humanity would stand united against any threat, no matter how formidable. In the aftermath of the first strike, as the dust settled over the devastated downtown area, the atmosphere was electric with adrenaline and disbelief. Humanity had managed to strike a significant blow against the Zarixian invaders, but the victory came at a cost. The streets lay littered with debris, and echoes of battle resonated in the air. Yet amid the chaos, a new resolve began to take root. Back in the underground facility, Sarah and her team gathered around a central monitor. Their expressions were a mix of triumph and concern. The initial ambush had exceeded their expectations, but they knew this was just the beginning. The Zarixian response would be swift and brutal. Ravi analyzed the data pouring in from the battle. He noted the critical systems that had failed on the Zarixian warship due to their energy weapon. The feedback showed that their technology was vulnerable. If they could find a way to exploit this weakness, they might just have a fighting chance. "We have to capitalize on this," he said excitedly. "The Zarixian forces will be on high alert now. but we can disrupt their supply lines and communications. If we can keep them off balance, we can maintain the momentum. Sarah nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Agreed, but we need more intel. We need to understand their command structure and how they're coordinating their forces. That's the key to dismantling their operations. As the team discussed their next steps, a transmission came through the facility's secure communication line. It was a frantic message from a group of resistance fighters stationed in a nearby city. They had captured a Zarixian scout during a skirmish and were demanding immediate extraction. Sarah saw an opportunity. This could be the intel we need. She quickly assembled a small team to head to the location of the scout extraction. The team set out with a sense of purpose, knowing that every second counted. Arriving at the extraction site, they found the resistance fighters barricaded in a small building surrounded by Zarixian patrols. The tension in the air was palpable. As Sarah assessed the situation, she could see the captured scout through the window, a Zarixian warrior, bound and struggling against its restraints. "We need to create a diversion," said one of her team members, pointing to a nearby fuel tank. "If we ignite it, the explosion will draw their attention away from the building." With a plan in place, Sarah and her team moved swiftly and silently. They set up the explosives, while another team provided cover fire. The moment was tense. As they triggered the explosion, flames erupted into the sky, casting an orange glow over the chaos. The Zarixian patrols immediately shifted their focus toward the fire, allowing Sarah and her team to slip inside the building. They quickly located the scout and freed it from its restraints. The Zarixian warrior looked up with a mixture of fear and confusion, but Sarah spoke with urgency. "We need information, not hostages. You can help us fight back against your own people." The scout hesitated, but desperation flickered in its eyes. It began to share critical details about the Zarixian command structure, their resource allocation, and their battle strategies. With each piece of information, the resistance fighters felt a surge of hope, knowing they could use this intel to plan their next moves. As they exited the building, the team heard the sounds of reinforcements approaching. They had to move fast. Sarah led the group through the back alleys, dodging patrols, and using their knowledge of the terrain to navigate safely back to the underground facility. Once they returned, the atmosphere was charged with excitement. The information they had gathered could change everything. It revealed vulnerabilities in the Zarixian command that could be exploited to dismantle their operations one piece at a time. As they analyzed the data, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just fighting to survive. They were now strategists in a larger battle for freedom, and for every oppressed being in the galaxy. This was the moment they had been waiting for, a chance to turn the tide, and finally show the Zarixian Empire that humanity would not be easily conquered. The stakes had never been higher, but with unity and resilience, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In this fight for survival, they had found their strength, and the flames of resistance burned brighter than ever. With the vital intelligence gathered from the Zarixian scout, the atmosphere in the underground facility shifted. The team worked feverishly to analyze the data. Ravi and Sarah pored over the details, uncovering key weaknesses in the Zarixian command structure. Their confidence surged as they realized they had a real chance to disrupt the enemy's operations. "We need to target their supply lines first," Ravi said, excitement radiating from him. "If we can cut off their resources, we can weaken their front lines and force them to spread their forces thin." Sarah nodded. "This is our opportunity to make a significant impact. We'll strike multiple supply depots, simultaneously creating chaos and confusion." The plan took shape rapidly. Teams were formed, each with specific objectives. They would target locations in various cities to ensure that the Zarixian forces could not concentrate their efforts on one front. As they prepared for the mission, a sense of unity permeated the facility. The fighters were no longer just individuals, but part of a larger movement, a revolution ignited by a fierce determination to reclaim their world. On the night of the operation, as darkness blanketed the city, the teams moved into position. The air was thick with tension and anticipation, each fighter fully aware of the risks they faced. But the drive to resist the Zarixian oppressors fueled their resolve. Their mission was clear, and their spirits high. Sarah led one of the teams toward a key supply depot on the outskirts of the city. Ravi remained at the facility, coordinating their movements and providing real-time updates through encrypted communication lines. He guided them toward their target. As they approached the depot, Sarah could see the Zarixian guards patrolling the perimeter, armed and vigilant. Their arrogance was evident, as they believed themselves untouchable. The humans would soon prove them wrong. With a hand signal, Sarah indicated the start of the operation. They moved swiftly and silently, taking out the guards, one by one, with precision and stealth. It was a dance of shadows as they infiltrated the depot, securing key points and setting charges to destroy the supplies within. Inside the facility, they found crates filled with weapons, ammunition, and rations. Their eyes widened at the sight of the resources that would fuel the Zarixian war machine. They knew they had to destroy everything. Ravi monitored their progress from the underground facility, his heart racing as he received updates. The teams were executing their plans flawlessly, but he knew they had to remain vigilant. The Zarixian forces would soon realize something was amiss and respond with overwhelming force. As Sarah's team planted explosives throughout the depot, they heard the distant rumble of engines approaching. The Zarixian reinforcements were on their way. They had limited time left. With the final charge in place, Sarah shouted, "We need to move now." The team hurriedly retraced their steps back toward their exit. As alarms blared throughout the facility, the sound of boots echoed behind them as Zarixian soldiers flooded the area. They emerged into the night just as the first explosions rocked the depot. The blasts lit up the sky, a brilliant display of fire and chaos. The humans sprinted toward their extraction point, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they reached safety, Sarah glanced back at the depot, now engulfed in flames. The destruction they had wrought would send a clear message to the Zarixian Empire. Humanity was rising, and they would not be silenced. Back at the underground facility, cheers erupted as each team returned with stories of bravery and triumph. They had successfully disrupted Zarixian supply lines and inflicted significant damage on their operations. Ravi gathered everyone together to review the impact of their actions. "The Zarixian forces are scrambling," he announced. "They are disorganized and vulnerable. We must seize this moment to press our advantage and continue our campaign of resistance." As the room filled with the sounds of determination and resolve, Sarah felt a wave of pride wash over her. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were part of a revolution that would echo across the galaxy. They had found their voice, and their unity would be their greatest weapon. In that moment, they knew the battle was far from over, but they had taken a crucial step toward reclaiming their future. With newfound strength and a fierce sense of purpose, they prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that together they could overcome any obstacle and ignite the flames of hope in the darkest of times. The victory over the supply depots sparked a wave of exhilaration and determination within the underground facility. News of their success spread quickly among the resistance fighters, inspiring hope and courage in those still struggling against the Zarixian threat. But Sarah and her team understood that the time for celebration was short. They had gained momentum, but the Zarixian Empire would not remain passive for long. In the days following their successful operation, Sarah called for a strategy meeting. Her team gathered around the central table, eager to discuss their next move. "We have disrupted their supply lines," she began, "but we need to take the fight directly to their command structure. If we can cripple their leadership, we can throw the entire operation into chaos." Ravi leaned forward, his eyes alight with excitement. "I managed to decode some additional information from the scout we captured. There are several key command centers located throughout the region, Each one coordinates Zarixian forces and logistics. If we can strike at these hubs, we can create a cascading failure in their operations. As the team deliberated, they mapped out the locations of the command centers, each one a fortified fortress, protected by heavy security and armed patrols. They knew this would be their most dangerous mission, but the stakes had never been higher. "We need a precise plan," said Sarah. "We can't afford to rush in blindly. If we fail, we risk losing everything, but if we succeed, we can dismantle the enemy from the inside out." After hours of strategizing, they settled on a two-pronged approach. One team would infiltrate a command center in the city, while another would create a diversion, drawing attention away from their true objective. Ravi would lead the tech team, ensuring their systems were hacked and disabled during the assault. As night fell, the atmosphere grew tense with anticipation. The teams assembled, preparing for the mission. Each member was acutely aware of the risks, but the fire of determination burned brightly within them. They were no longer just fighters, they were champions of a cause greater than themselves. As they moved through the city, Sarah led her team toward the chosen command center. The shadows cloaked their movements. As they approached the heavily fortified building, armed Zarixian soldiers patrolled the perimeter, unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon them. Ravi remained at the underground facility, monitoring their progress from a secure location. He worked furiously to access the command center's systems. Using the intelligence they had gathered, the tension in the air was palpable. As he typed furiously, his heart racing with each passing moment. Once inside the perimeter, Sarah's team moved with precision. They used stealth to eliminate guards and navigate the darkened hallways of the command center. Their goal was to reach the main control room, where the enemy's operations were coordinated. As they advanced, they could hear the low hum of machinery and the distant sounds of Zarixian communication. But just as they neared the control room, an alarm blared through the facility. Red lights flashed, illuminating their path and signaling that they had been detected. "We need to move now," Sarah shouted. The element of surprise was gone, but they would not back down. They charged forward, breaching the control room door, to find Zarixian officers scrambling to respond to the threat. A fierce firefight erupted as the two sides clashed inside the chaos. Ravi worked tirelessly from his location, using every ounce of his skills to disrupt their systems. He could see the digital maps flickering as he hacked into their network, shutting down communications and supply routes. As the battle raged on in the control room, Sarah's team fought with everything they had. They were outnumbered, but the fire of resistance fueled their courage. Every shot fired, every move made, was a testament to their resolve to reclaim their world. Just as the tide began to shift in favor of the Zarixian forces, Ravi executed a critical command, disabling the building's security systems. The lights flickered and alarms went silent. The Zarixian officers were thrown into disarray as they lost their command structure. Seizing the moment, Sarah shouted to her team, "Now push forward. We can end this here." They surged forward, overwhelming the Zarixian officers and securing the control room. The chaos transformed into a fierce determination to claim victory. With their systems compromised and their command dismantled, the Zarixian forces were in disarray. The humans had struck a decisive blow, and as they fought on, the spirit of resistance surged through them, lighting a path toward liberation. With the command center secured and the Zarixian operations thrown into chaos, Sarah and her team stood in the heart of the control room, catching their breath. The atmosphere was charged with adrenaline and a newfound sense of purpose. They had achieved a significant victory, but they knew the battle was far from over. Ravi's fingers flew over the control panels. As he continued to assess the damage, they'd lost their main communication channels, he reported, and their ability to coordinate forces is severely compromised. This is our chance to launch a full-scale assault on their remaining command centers. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. This was their opportunity to turn the tide of the war. The Zarixian Empire would be reeling from the blow they had dealt, and now was the time to capitalize on that vulnerability. "We need to move quickly," she said, "before they can regroup. Let's split our forces and hit as many targets as possible." The team quickly strategized their next moves, selecting remaining command centers to attack. While their confidence surged, they knew the Zarixian forces would not back down easily. As they prepared to leave the control room, Ravi initiated a final hack, disabling the security systems across the city. He knew this would give them the upper hand, but also trigger alarms that could draw reinforcements. The countdown began, and they had only minutes to make their escape. Outside, the building chaos erupted as Zarixian soldiers scrambled to respond to the sudden losses and communication failures. Sarah and her team slipped into the shadows, moving with purpose as they made their way toward the extraction point. Each step felt heavier than the last as they navigated through the city streets, still reeling from the earlier battles. The air was thick with smoke, and the distant sounds of conflict echoed through the night, but amidst the chaos the spirit of resistance burned brightly. As they neared the extraction point, the team heard the unmistakable sound of Zarixian reinforcements. Approaching, the enemy was regrouping, and they would not let the humans escape without a fight. "We need to hold them off," said Sarah, drawing her weapon and taking a defensive stance. The team prepared for the confrontation, knowing that this could be their last stand. The Zarixian soldiers emerged from the shadows, their numbers overwhelming. The firefight that ensued was fierce, and chaotic bullets whizzed by as both sides fought for dominance. The humans moved with agility, their training and determination shining through, but the Zarixian forces were relentless, driven by their desire to crush the human uprising. Ravi provided tactical support from behind cover, guiding the team through the melee using the knowledge he had gained from the command center's systems. He called out positions and strategies, helping them maneuver through the fray. As the battle raged, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility pressing upon her. She could see the fear and determination in her team's eyes, and she knew they were fighting not just for themselves, but for every soul oppressed by the Zarixian Empire. With each fallen Zarixian soldier, the humans felt a surge of hope. They were proving their worth on this battlefield, fighting with a unity that transcended their differences. But the enemy kept pressing forward, and the tide began to shift against them. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, Ravi spotted a group of Zarixian officers rallying their forces on the edge of the skirmish. "If we can take them out," he shouted, pointing to the officers, "it could break their morale and send them into disarray." With renewed determination, Sarah led a charge toward the officers, her team following close behind. They moved with a singular focus, pushing through the chaos and engaging the enemy with fierce precision. As they fought their way toward the officers, the tide of the battle shifted once more. Sarah confronted the lead officer, a formidable figure with a reputation for cruelty. The two clashed in a desperate struggle, but Sarah's resolve proved unbreakable. With a final surge of strength, she overpowered the officer, and in that moment, the remaining Zarixian forces faltered. The sight of their fallen leader shattered their morale. The humans seized the moment to push forward, driving the Zarixian soldiers into retreat. The streets echoed with the cries of victory as the tide of battle turned firmly in favor of the resistance. In that decisive moment, Sarah and her team understood the true power of unity and determination. They had not only defended their cause, but had ignited a revolution that would resonate throughout the galaxy. The fight was far from over, but they had proven that humanity would not be easily conquered, and that the flames of resistance burned brighter than ever before. In the wake of their stunning victory, the atmosphere in the streets was electric. The cheers of resistance fighters echoed through the city as they celebrated their hard-fought triumph over the Zarixian forces. Yet amidst the jubilation, Sarah and her team remained acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. They had dealt a significant blow, but the war was far from over. Gathering together in a makeshift command center, Sarah looked at her team, the faces of her comrades illuminated by the flickering lights of their devices. "We've achieved something remarkable," she began, "but we must remain vigilant. The Xerixian Empire will retaliate, and we cannot allow ourselves to become complacent." Ravi stepped forward, looking at the tactical maps spread across the table. "I've been analyzing the data from our last attack," he said. "If we can leverage this momentum, we can strike at their remaining command centers and cripple their ability to launch a coordinated response. We need to capitalize on their disarray." The team nodded in agreement. They had seen firsthand the fragility of the Xerixian command structure and understood that now was the time to act. With a renewed sense of purpose, they mapped out their next moves, targeting the most critical remaining strongholds. As they strategized, Sarah felt a sense of camaraderie that had deepened through their shared struggles. They were no longer just individuals fighting for survival. They had become a unified force driven by a common goal. Their experiences had forged bonds that could not be easily broken. In the days that followed, the Resistance launched a series of coordinated strikes against the Xerixian command centers. Each battle was fierce, but the humans fought with a tenacity fueled by the knowledge that they were reclaiming their world. One by one, they dismantled the enemy's infrastructure, leaving chaos in their wake. As the Resistance grew bolder, the tides of the war began to shift in cities and towns across the globe. Humanity rallied to join the fight against the odds. People came together, forming new alliances and networks of support. The Xerixian Empire's grip was slipping, and the flames of rebellion ignited a spirit of hope that spread far and wide. Back in the underground facilities, Sarah and her team monitored the unfolding events with a mixture of pride and determination. They saw their fellow humans rising up, refusing to be silenced. The spirit of resistance was undeniable, and with every victory the fire within them grew stronger. But the Xerixian leadership was not without its own resources. As news of the humans' victories reached the upper echelons of their command, the Empire dispatched reinforcements to quell the uprising. A new general known for ruthlessness was sent to take charge of operations on Earth. As the new forces arrived, the Resistance faced its greatest challenge. Yet the Xerixian soldiers were battle-hardened and disciplined. Their strategy was swift and brutal, targeting key resistance points in a bid to crush the rebellion. In the midst of this renewed threat, Sarah called an emergency meeting. Her team gathered once more in the command center. As they discussed their options, they understood the stakes had risen dramatically. "We need to adapt and stay one step ahead," she urged. "We can't let them anticipate our moves." Ravi proposed a daring plan. "We need to draw their forces into a trap." He said, "We can use decoys to create false targets. While we hit their command from an unexpected angle, it's risky, but it could buy us the time we need to regroup." The team rallied around the idea, embracing the challenge. They knew the risks involved, but the stakes were too high to back down. They set their plan into motion, using every resource at their disposal to prepare for the impending confrontation. The final showdown approached. As the Resistance executed their strategy, using stealth and deception, they managed to draw the Xerixian forces away from their strongholds. While the enemy was preoccupied, the humans launched a surprise attack on the heart of the Xerixian command structure. The battle that ensued was fierce and chaotic. Both sides fought with everything they had, but the humans' determination shone through as they pressed forward. The lessons they had learned in the previous battles fueled their resolve. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their very existence. As Sarah led her team into the fray, they could feel the weight of history upon them. This was not just a fight for survival, but a struggle for the future of humanity. The courage and unity they had forged would be their greatest weapon in the face of tyranny. In that climactic moment, they understood the true meaning of resistance and the power that came from standing together against all odds. They fought not only for themselves, but for every soul that yearned for freedom. The flames of rebellion had ignited a fire that could not be extinguished, and the legacy of their struggle would echo through the ages, a testament to the indomitable human spirit.